Hey everyone, this is Razorfinger, and this is the 4th episode of Small Talk. The RPG genre has been evolving a lot in the past couple of years, and finding representation in many forms. Nowadays, every big release has to have at least some influence from the genre, being in a number-crunching weapon upgrade system or a sometimes unnecessary skill tree, and occasionally even having different classes to choose from. With this much representation, it's interesting to see the evolution of the genre, and specifically how much we've been moving away from the traditional turn-based style of RPGs. Nowadays, only a handful of games opt for this approach. Even Final Fantasy, one of the pioneers of the genre, has recently been moving towards the action RPG direction, for better or worse. While the mix of action and turn-based that has been floating around recently isn't really my style, as I'd rather have one or the other, I think it managed to influence a whole new subset of RPGs, especially in the indie scene. I don't think this genre I'm talking about has a name yet, as it's weirdly specific, but I'll take to calling it the Minigame RPG. What it essentially is a turn-based RPG where, between turns, little minigames play out. The first game of this style that I can think about is Undertale, where between attacks you have to play that bullet hell minigame. And that may be part of the reason so many indie games are taking up this mantle. There are a lot of games in this style that are in my small talk backlog, like Rose of Starcross, Blue Omens, or Heartbound. I decided it's now time to take out one of the games out of this backlog. And the one that has surprised me the most. Other, Her Loving Embrace. So, what's the big idea behind this game? Well, as the tutorial book say it, many adventurers have grown complacent. They feel like their damage simply just happens once they decide to attack. This is not the case. You must physically approach the enemy, then attack them yourself. So, in battle, you gotta walk up to the monster and whack him in the face. Also, a small nitpick before anything, these exposition tutorial type books are not the best kind of tutorial. There are a lot of mechanics and things to learn, both in battle and outside of it, so it makes for quite an extensive reading when you decide to pick up these books. It's 4 books with 4 categories each, so it takes a while and takes you straight out of the game. Not only that, but it's also hard to fully grasp what you are reading, as they are the first thing you interact with in the game before you ever get into a combat scenario. Still, it's a very small thing and totally optional actually, so it really is just a nitpick and nothing else. The combat itself is reminiscent of something like a Super Smash Bros., where you have your standard attacks that can change depending on the direction you are holding the movement buttons. And, much like in Smash Bros., it's a very simple battle system that can be casually enjoyed, but that allows for a lot of complex and cool looking combos, that may even kill enemies in one turn. Not only you have your physical attacks, but you also have a couple of special moves that cost mana, and their effectiveness is based off of different types of minigames. A minigame RPG at its prime. My favorite spell is this one. Generally speaking, the game doesn't give you a lot of MP to work with, and whacking the enemies is usually more effective. However, some spells allow you to choose between offensive and defense. For example, Gershom, the main character, can create a magic bubble. This can be used to trap enemies for a turn. It's sometimes useful, as some enemies try to run away from you, but with the amount of stun locking that your attacks do, it's generally not much help. That said, by using the bubble defensively, you can give you or your ally a shield that translates to upwards of 2 hits of health, and that's quite a lot in the middle of a difficult battle. Both characters have unique skills, and they can deal both magic damage or physical damage, and enemies might have resistances or weaknesses to both of these types. It's very diverse, and even in the demo you can see a lot of the variety shine. Speaking of the characters and their abilities, the story is also pretty good. Explaining it briefly, you play as Gershon, a small kid from royalty who has been traveling around and learning magic from a bit of a weirdo called the Wizard. It's a common trope, the easily impressed kid that hangs out with the somewhat sketchy guy that is not very impressive at all. Think maybe Mob Psycho. Still, the writing is funny and full of character, and it never ends up feeling generic. The wizard is a nice guy and does actually have some amount of magical powers. And even through the relatively short duration of the demo, Gershon managed to get quite the character development that ends with this banger of a moment. The whole game has quite a lot of style in its writing, with many quotable phrases and cool moments. Entering spoiler territory, as it's only a short demo that you can play for free, I quite like Maria, the final boss of the demo. She's got the whole batshit crazy and yet eloquent writing style, and I just love it. Not only that, and more spoilers ahead, but her final battle is just the absolute definition of hype. I love when games completely bend their rules, making something that fully surprises you. I was absolutely not expecting the game to fully go on to the action thing, but it did, and it was awesome and blew me away completely. It's a great and also very hard battle that goes to show just how rock solid the battle mechanics are on their own. There's a great learning curve to learning Maria's moveset, knowing when to stop attacking before taking a counter attack to the face, and using things like the dodge mechanic that you don't normally have to do in standard battles. For me, this really was the highlight of the whole game. That one moment where you just know that the developers were planning to blow your mind from the start, and the whole game has been building up to it. I guess that leaves me with my only complaint, the puzzles. They're certainly not bad, but I gotta say they sometimes feel very detached from the main game. Like, what can I put in the meantime between battles? Block pushing puzzles. To be fair, they serve their purpose, and sometimes really are the perfect thing to prevent all the battling from getting repetitive. The biggest problem here, in my opinion, is that they are a bit too numerous and not interesting enough to disguise the sheer amount of them. The game even throws a bit of lamp shading to it, which implies they know it's a bit much. Later on, when Gershon's magic repertoire expands a bit, the puzzles do get more complex, and with more versatile spells we could get very interesting puzzles later on, but that remains to be seen. Right now they are only scratching the surface. With that said, it's a great experience that blew my mind from the second I found it to the moment I finished it. It's a great take on RPGs, especially on minigame RPGs, that I thoroughly recommend to anyone. Thanks for watching.